I used to think decluttering meant tackling the obvious, the junk drawer, the coat closet, maybe those dusty bins in the attic. But when I moved into this little house, I realized the heaviest things weren't stacked on shelves, they were quietly woven into how I lived. It wasn't about old furniture or piles of stuff, it was about what those things represented. The habits. The hidden pressure. The quiet shifts I didn't even realize were dictating how I moved through my space. Some of what I let go of wouldn't make sense to anyone else. They weren't messy. They weren't broken. But they carried a weight I'd gotten used to carrying, and once I set them down, the air in my home changed. That's why this list might surprise you. Because none of these things would raise a red flag if you walked into my house a year ago. But now that they are gone, I feel more at home than I ever did surrounded by them. These are 7 things you'll never find in my little house again. And no, it's not just about getting rid of stuff, it's about getting closer to the life I want to live now. One decision at a time. One small shift after another. 1. Loyalty to expired routines. There was a time when my mornings felt like a stopwatch was ticking the moment my eyes opened. Up by 6 o'clock. News by 6:30. Emails before breakfast. Laundry cycling before noon. Groceries squeezed in before traffic. It wasn't a schedule. It was a rhythm, one I followed for decades without question. But one day, shortly after I moved into my smaller house, I woke up naturally for the first time in years. No alarm. No agenda. And I noticed something strange. I didn't miss the rush. I missed me. The version of myself who once had space to linger in thought. Who used to start the day with prayer, or coffee by the window, or journaling without the pressure of checking off tasks. I realized that so many of the routines I was still loyal to weren't even relevant anymore. They were hand-me-downs from a life full of deadlines, children's schedules, 9-to-5 demands, and errands that never seemed to end. I was holding onto them like heirlooms, because they represented productivity, structure, being put together. But here's the truth, not all routines deserve to grow old with us. Some are built for survival, others for speed. But very few are built for peace. And peace is what I needed most after 60. So I started letting go of rituals that didn't serve me anymore. I stopped setting alarms unless absolutely necessary. I replaced the background noise of the morning news with soft music or silence. I began greeting the day with my body, not in spite of it. If I woke up tired, I stretched. If I woke up clear, I wrote. Some mornings I read scripture. Others I sat with my tea and just watched the light come in. And the funny thing? My days didn't fall apart. They fell into place. The pressure to fill every hour with proof of productivity began to fade. In its place came presence. That doesn't mean I do nothing. But now, what I do is on purpose. Not just out of habit. The hard part wasn't letting go of the routines. It was letting go of who I thought I was without them. Because for years, my worth was tied to how much I got done before 10 a.m. Now, it's tied to how present I feel in my own skin. If your mornings still carry the echo of an old life, one you're no longer living, you have permission to rewrite them. You don't owe your loyalty to routines that don't return your peace. Start small. Change the order of your morning. Pause before turning anything on. Ask yourself, does this part of my day feel good or just familiar? You might be surprised by how much your day transforms when you let it rise with you, not ahead of you. 2. The emergency drawer of obsolete tools. There was a drawer in my old house that I avoided opening unless absolutely necessary. Not because it was messy, but because it was a time capsule. It held a flip phone charger from 2008. An old TV remote that belonged to a television I no longer owned. A wrench I never figured out how to use. The manual for a fax machine I gave away before smartphones became smart. And a dozen mystery cords I was too afraid to toss, just in case. I called it my emergency drawer, but the real emergency was how it made me feel. Every time I opened it, I felt overwhelmed, confused, and oddly behind. Like I was clinging to a version of preparedness that didn't even apply to my life anymore. That drawer didn't say organized. It said, I don't trust myself to move on. And I think that's something many of us over 60 struggle with, but rarely admit. We keep these things because we're afraid of being caught unprepared. We were raised on resourcefulness. We saved rubber bands, washed foil, kept extra screws. We were taught that being prepared meant having everything, just in case. But what happens when those cases never come? What happens when the emergencies we're planning for belong to a world that no longer exists? I realized I was preparing for problems from 30 years ago, tech issues I'd no longer try to fix myself, tools I'd never realistically use alone, systems that no longer run on manuals but on apps and automatic updates. It hit me one afternoon when I tried to find a pen and had to dig past 2 Nokia chargers, a label maker cartridge, and a mini flashlight that didn't work. I thought, if this drawer is where I turn in a crisis, I'm in trouble. That day, I emptied it completely. I spread everything out on the table and asked, when was the last time I reached for this, and why? I threw away the cords with no mate. Donated the gadgets I never used. Recycled the stack of instructions I could easily find online if I ever needed them again. And then, I rebuilt that drawer, not for imagined emergencies, but for today's reality. Now it holds a working flashlight with fresh batteries, a basic screwdriver, a copy of my emergency contacts, 1 pair of scissors, 1 roll of medical tape, and space, real, open space, so I can see what I have when I need it most. It's not just cleaner. It's calmer. Because now, my drawer doesn't whisper fear. It tells me, you've got what you need, and nothing you don't. So if you have a drawer like that, stuffed with old tech, unused tools, expired comfort items, you're not alone. But you're also not stuck. You can reclaim that space. Not just to make room in your home, but to remind yourself, you're living in this season now, and you are more than capable of handling it. 3 articles I meant to read someday. I used to keep a tidy little stack near the edge of my kitchen table. A few printed newsletters. A recipe I meant to try. A clipping from a health magazine about joint pain. A flyer from a friend's book club. At first, it felt harmless, just a gentle reminder that I still had things to explore. But one day, I looked down and realized the pile wasn't gentle anymore. It was whispering, "You're behind." Behind on staying informed. Behind on keeping up with recipes, trends, the latest health breakthroughs. Behind on being the me I used to be, the one who tore out articles and read every word before bed. What began as inspiration slowly turned into quiet guilt. I kept telling myself I'd read them someday. But someday never seemed to arrive. Instead, the pile grew. Not by accident, but by habit. Every time I got the mail, I added more. Every time a friend handed me something you just have to read, I accepted it politely. And every time I walked past that stack without touching it, a tiny voice inside said, "You're slipping." But here's what I finally realized. If something sits untouched for weeks, not because I forgot, but because I didn't want to, it probably wasn't meant for me in the first place. So I did something that felt oddly rebellious for someone like me. I recycled the entire pile. No sorting. No skimming. No guilt. I let it go. And in that empty space, something unexpected happened. I gave myself permission to read what interests me right now, not what once sounded useful. Now, when I sit with my tea in the morning, I don't reach for a stack of old promises. I open one article. Or one essay. Or I don't read at all, I just look out the window. And somehow, I feel more informed than I ever did chasing half-finished reading lists. Letting go of that pile wasn't about giving up learning. It was about shifting the energy. From future pressure to present curiosity. I stopped saving information out of fear I'd miss something. And I started trusting that whatever I'm meant to know, I'll find it when I'm ready to absorb it. So if you have a basket, a box, or even just a drawer full of things you've been meaning to read, ask yourself this. Are you still interested? Or are you just afraid to let go of being someone who used to be interested? There's no shame in changing. Your curiosity hasn't disappeared. It's just waiting for you to stop feeling behind. Give it space. Let it breathe. And you might be surprised what you're finally ready to discover today. 4. Outdated health products I no longer trust. There's a certain kind of clutter that hides in plain sight, tucked neatly behind mirrored cabinets, lined up in bedside drawers, or buried at the bottom of wellness baskets. It doesn't look messy. It doesn't raise concern. But it quietly creates confusion every single day. For me, it was a growing collection of health products that promised more than they delivered. Not expired. Not dangerous. Just misleading. And completely disconnected from the life I'm living now. There were sample vitamins from wellness expos. Eye creams I was told would erase time. Sleep aids that left me groggy. Herbal blends I couldn't pronounce. Collagen powders I tried once and never opened again. Even bandages I didn't know how to apply. Each one had a label that sounded official. Each one was bought, or given to me, with good intentions. And each one made me feel like I was doing something for my health, even if I wasn't actually using it. That's the sneaky part. Health clutter feels productive, responsible, even empowering. Until one day, you open your medicine cabinet and realize you're not empowered, you're overwhelmed. One morning, I went to grab my usual pain relief cream and spent 5 minutes digging past half-used jars, mismatched supplements, and duplicate bottles I didn't even remember purchasing. I held up a capsule bottle and thought, wait, what is this for again? And that's when it hit me. If I can't explain what it's doing for my body, I probably don't need it in my home. So I made a decision, one that felt a little scary at first. I emptied every health-related space in my house and laid it all out. One table. One honest inventory. And I asked myself 3 questions. 1. Do I use this consistently? 2. Was this recommended by my doctor or by an ad? 3. Can I explain why I'm taking or using this? If the answer was no, I let it go. That day, I cleared out over 40 items. 40 little symbols of uncertainty. 40 tiny whispers of maybe this will fix it. What I kept was simple. The essentials I use and understand. Supplements we've discussed in appointments. Bandages I know how to apply. Creams that truly soothe. Now, when I open that cabinet, I don't feel lost. I feel aligned. Because my health deserves clarity, not clutter. Not products I bought out of fear. Not routines I never committed to. And definitely not pressure to try everything just to keep up. If your bathroom or bedside table holds items you haven't touched in months, let this be your permission. Not to throw it all out blindly, but to take inventory with kindness and truth. Ask yourself, is this helping me live better now, or just reminding me of who I think I should be? Your body isn't a project. It's your home. And it deserves products that support it, without making you second-guess your worth. 5. Duplicate memories in digital form. It started innocently. A photo of my grandson blowing out his birthday candles. Then another, from a slightly better angle. Then 5 more, just to be sure I captured it right. And just like that, one memory turned into 20 almost identical images. Multiply that by holidays, vacations, sunsets, recipes, receipts, screenshots, and blurry selfies I didn't even know I took, and one day, I looked at my phone and saw the number, 6,127 photos. And I didn't feel proud. I felt buried. There's something no one warns you about with digital clutter. Unlike a messy drawer or overstuffed closet, it doesn't take up physical space. But it fills your mind every time you try to scroll through your memories. Instead of joy, I felt pressure. Pressure to organize it all someday. To label each one. Back them up. Sort the best. Print the worthy. But someday never came. Because every time I opened my gallery, I saw a never-ending list of decisions I didn't want to make. Which sunset was better? Which hug photo had the most natural smile? Why did I take a screenshot of my old utility bill in 2020? I realized I wasn't preserving memories. I was hoarding them. Worse still, I couldn't find the photos that truly mattered when I needed them. One time, I wanted to show my neighbor a picture of my late husband planting tomatoes with our granddaughter. It took me 12 minutes to dig through the camera roll, and I gave up. That moment changed everything. I asked myself, what's the point of keeping memories I can't even access? So I started something small, but life-changing. Every morning, I set aside 5 minutes to delete. Not whole albums, just duplicates. Screenshots I forgot. Photos that held no meaning. It became a ritual. And after a few weeks, I noticed something odd. My memories started feeling closer. Not because there were more of them, but because the ones I had were finally visible. I selected the most meaningful images, ones that made me pause, and printed a handful. I placed a few in frames. Slipped some into an album. Even mailed a couple to friends who had no idea those moments had been captured. Now, when I look back at my photos, I feel something again. Connection. Warmth. Simplicity. Not because the number is high, but because each photo still touches me. And that's the key. It's not about saving everything. It's about choosing the memories that still speak. So if your phone is filled with thousands of photos you never revisit, don't let the volume fool you. You're not keeping memories, you're hiding them. Let them breathe. Let them live. And let the rest go. 6. Papers that feel like permission slips. They weren't just papers. They were quiet proof that I had handled things. Old receipts carefully folded into envelopes. Medical statements I didn't understand but couldn't throw away. Tax records from decades ago, organized in yellowing folders I hadn't touched since the Clinton administration. Instructional letters from insurance companies. Copies of warranty forms for appliances I no longer owned. Bank statements long past their use. At one point, I convinced myself they meant I was being responsible. Prepared. Grown up. Because that's what we were taught, wasn't it? Keep everything. You might need it for your records. You never know who will ask. You never know what proof you'll need. But here's what I didn't realize. These papers weren't proof of readiness anymore. They were evidence of anxiety I didn't want to admit. Every time I tried to sort them, I'd freeze. What if I tossed the wrong thing? What if I needed it for taxes, or insurance, or an audit, even if no one ever asked in 40 years? I wasn't organizing. I was delaying. And here's what finally snapped me out of it. I tried to find one single document I actually needed, and couldn't. It was buried in the archive I had built to feel safe. And I thought, if this is how I feel now, how would someone else feel if they had to find this after I'm gone? That thought changed everything. So I sat down and went through every folder, every accordion file, every kitchen drawer that secretly held a stack of folded papers just in case. And with each one, I asked, is this still useful, or just something I've kept to feel safe? Would I know where this is in 5 minutes if someone asked for it? Is this serving me, or just reminding me of something I was once afraid of? I shredded over half of it. Old utility bills that no longer mattered. Credit card statements from closed accounts. Doctor visit summaries I hadn't referenced in years. And you know what I discovered under that paper? Room to breathe. Now, I keep 3 folders. Current health and insurance. Legal and financial essentials. Household and emergency contacts. That's it. If it's not legally required, medically useful, or actively relevant, it doesn't stay. Because the truth is, our peace is not buried in paper. It's in knowing that what's left behind actually helps us, or the ones who might come after us. So if you've got a drawer full of papers that make you feel on top of things, but actually make you dread opening it, it's okay to let go. You are not less responsible for releasing the past. You're just finally trusting the present. Seven. Anything that makes me apologize for aging. This one took me the longest to let go of, not because it was hard to throw away, but because I didn't realize I was still holding onto the belief behind it. You won't find shapewear in my drawer anymore. Not because I'm against it, but because the reason I wore it was never for me. I wore it so others would see me as put together. So my waistline looked smoother in group photos. So I'd seem like I still had it together after 60. And the truth? It made me uncomfortable. It pinched. It dug into my ribs. It didn't help me feel beautiful. It helped me feel hidden. Then there were the beauty creams. The ones that promised to reverse the clock. Erase wrinkles, brighten, lift, smooth, hide. Every ad felt like it was shouting, "Your face isn't allowed to look like it's been lived in." I used to buy them on sale. Line them up on my shelf. Apply them like homework, waiting for results that never came. Not because they didn't work, but because they were never meant to honor who I actually am. They were designed to help me pretend. The final thing? Clothes I was saving for a body that doesn't exist anymore. Blouses I'd outgrown. Pants I told myself I'd fit into again. The dress from 1998 I kept because maybe one day. I didn't keep them because I loved them. I kept them because I hadn't fully accepted that this body, this beautiful, capable, wise body, was already enough. Letting them go wasn't about giving up. It was about finally arriving. Because here's what I know now. I don't decorate myself to win approval anymore. I dress in what lets me move freely, breathe deeply, and laugh without holding my stomach in. I wear what feels like me, not who I used to be, or who society tells me I should try to become. And something strange happened when I stopped apologizing for the natural signs of aging. My posture improved. Not physically, emotionally. I felt less like I had something to prove. And more like I had something to offer. A presence that didn't need editing. A smile that didn't need filters. A life that didn't need rewinding, just honoring. So now, my closet isn't a museum of who I used to be. It's a sanctuary for the version of me that woke up this morning, poured her tea, and smiled at her reflection without flinching. If you're still keeping things that only exist to fix you, ask yourself, would I give this to someone I love? Because if the answer is no, you don't need to keep giving it to yourself. Aging isn't a problem to solve. It's a story to wear with pride. It's easy to assume that decluttering means trash bags, donation bins, and reorganized shelves. But for me, the most powerful things I've let go of weren't visible at all. They didn't make noise. They didn't spill out of closets or sit on countertops. They sat quietly in drawers, in memory, in habit, waiting for me to finally notice them. And one by one, I did. I didn't clear my house to impress anyone. I didn't do it to become minimalist, trendy, or efficient. I did it because I was tired of negotiating with objects and obligations that no longer reflected who I am. Every loyalty card I tossed reminded me I no longer needed to chase belonging. Every old article I recycled reminded me that curiosity shouldn't feel like pressure. Every shapewear item, dusty bottle, or outdated form I released gave me back a tiny piece of myself. And when I say I feel lighter, I don't mean the house feels emptier. I mean I do. My space feels easier to breathe in. Not because it's perfect, but because it's honest. No more drawers of hesitation. No more shelves of someday. No more closets of silent apology. Just a little house that matches the life I'm living now. Not the one I used to live. Not the one I thought I should be living. The one I've finally grown into, on purpose. So if even one of these 7 things quietly lives in your home too, you're not behind. You're not messy. You're not too sentimental. You're human. And you're evolving. You don't need to rip everything out in a day. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. But you can start with one small thing. One quiet item that no longer earns its place in the season you're in now. Letting go doesn't mean rejecting your past. It means making space for your future and honoring who you are right here, today. And that kind of clarity? It's priceless. So, tell me in the comments. What have you let go of that no one talks about? What invisible weight are you finally done carrying? If this video helped you breathe easier, hit that like button. Share it with someone over 60 who's been quietly carrying things they no longer need. And subscribe to Wise Aging Seniors, because aging well isn't about shrinking. It's about growing lighter, in all the right ways.